She was sold to a caveman for a week's worth of meat, but his intention was not what she expected. The chilling wind howled through the jagged cliffs as Mara stood shackled to her fate, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. Sold for a week's worth of meat, she was no more than a bargaining chip in a brutal world where humanity was often discarded. The rough hands of the caveman, scarred and calloused from years of survival, gripped her chin, forcing her to meet his stormy gaze. Yet, lurking beneath his wild exterior was an unexpected depth, an unshed tear glimmering in the corner of his eye, hinting at a history of desolation. In that moment of raw vulnerability, Mara felt an unfamiliar pang of hope. Was there more to this savage than mere hunger? As shadows danced around them, she realized that the true battle lay not in her captivity, but in the potential for salvation, hidden within the heart of a man society had deemed a monster. The air hung thick with tension in the cavern, shadows flickering against the jagged stone walls, as the last echoes of a distant storm faded into silence. She stood, heart racing, her hands trembling at her sides, feeling the weight of every gaze that pierced through the dim light. The man before her was a mountain of muscle, his features rough-hewn and wild, a stark contrast to the delicate world she had known. He moved with a predatory grace, each step purposeful, as if the very ground beneath them bowed to his presence. She felt small, utterly exposed, yet something stirred within her, a flicker of defiance. This was not merely a barter, it was a collision of lives, a moment teetering on the edge of transformation. He kept his distance, yet his eyes sought hers, a storm brewing within their depths. She could feel the weight of unspoken words, the air thick with questions that lingered on the tip of her tongue. What were his intentions really? Was she merely a means to an end, a token traded for sustenance? The very idea made her stomach twist, yet the curiosity nagged at her too, a longing to understand the man behind the primal exterior. When he finally offered her a scrap of dried meat, the gesture seemed almost tender, an unexpected bridge between their disparate worlds. She hesitated, the pulse of the moment thrumming in her veins, and a silent battle unfolded between fear and the impulse to reach out and grasp what lay before her. Days blurred together, a strange rhythm settling into the cavern. She observed him as he carved the meat, muscles taut and glistening under the flickering firelight. There was an artistry in his movements, a raw elegance that captivated her. Slowly, she began to yearn for his approval, the way he glanced at her from the corner of his eye, an unguarded moment laden with meaning. They exchanged no words, yet in the silence, an understanding began to bloom. She saw beyond the caveman, glimpsing the vulnerability that lay beneath his hardened facade. Her laughter, once stifled by fear, began to spill into the air, mingling with the crackling flames, fostering an unexpected bond that neither had anticipated. Then came the night when the storm returned, fierce and unyielding, the howling winds echoing their own inner tumult. She felt the tremors of fear course through her as the walls of their temporary home shook, yet he stood beside her, unwavering. In that moment, a shift occurred. She caught a fragment of his past in his resolute gaze, the burden of survival etched into the lines of his weathered face. He reached out, a simple act, yet it reverberated with the promise of safety and warmth. A profound connection ignited between them, something that began to dissolve the barriers of their differing worlds. In his presence, she found an unexpected solace, a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. As the week waned, an unspoken promise lingered between them, an acknowledgement of their shared fragility in a world that often felt unkind. The meat had long since been consumed, yet she found sustenance in the bond they had forged. The caveman was no longer merely a figure of fear. He had become a companion in this strange journey. As the last embers of their fire faded, she felt a sense of gratitude swelling within, transforming what had begun as a desperate surrender into a newfound freedom. In those fleeting days, they had carved an existence that transcended their circumstances, a testament to resilience and the unexpected beauty that arose from the collision of two disparate souls. The room was dimly lit, shadows dancing across the walls like whispers of forgotten dreams. Emma's heart raced as she sat across from Victor, the man who held her future in his hands. The weight of the moment pressed down on her, a heavy cloak of desperation that clung to her skin. His steely gaze pierced through her facade, unraveling the tightly coiled threads of her resolve. The tick of the clock seemed to mock her with each passing second, as though time itself was a silent accomplice in this twisted negotiation. In that charged silence, the air thickened, filled with the unspoken stakes of their impending agreement, a bargain that could change everything. Victor leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled like a spider waiting to ensnare its prey. A smirk played on his lips, a flicker of amusement contrasted by the coldness in his eyes. Emma could feel the walls closing in, the suffocating realization that she had walked into a trap of her own making. Her palms were slick against the worn table, the splinters biting into her skin, grounding her in this moment of desperation. She caught a glimpse of her reflection in his dark glasses, fear and determination waging war in her own eyes. This was not merely a negotiation. It was a dance on the edge of a precipice, where one misstep could send her tumbling into darkness. "Think carefully, Emma," Victor said, his voice smooth as silk yet laced with an underlying threat. The words slithered between them, coiling around her like a serpent. She swallowed hard, the weight of his implication sinking deep into her chest. The corners of the room seemed to close in further, muffling the outside world as her mind raced through the consequences of her choices. Every fiber of her being urged her to walk away, yet the allure of what he offered dangled before her like a forbidden fruit. Her pulse quickened with the thrill of risk, the thrill of potentially rewriting her own narrative. But the question remained, at what cost? The air shifted as Emma's resolve solidified, a flicker of fire igniting within her. She lifted her chin, defiance flaring in her gaze as she met his eyes head-on. Victor's smirk faltered, just for a moment, as a new understanding stirred between them, a mutual recognition of the game they were playing. She was no longer a puppet in his theater. She felt the weight of her own agency, the power that lay in accepting the terms of this trade. The air crackled with unspoken promises, her heartbeat echoing in her ears like a drum of war. She would not cower. She would bargain for her redemption, no matter the cost. With a deep breath, she leaned forward, letting the tension bridge the gap between them. Victor's expression shifted, curiosity replacing arrogance as he sensed a shift in her energy. She could practically hear the gears turning in his mind, calculating, assessing. In that moment, their connection transcended mere negotiation. It became a fragile alliance teetering on the edge of trust and betrayal. Emma's voice trembled slightly as she whispered her terms, each word a testament to her newfound courage, her willingness to embrace the shadows of her past. The deal hung in the air, and beneath the weight of her confession, both of them understood that this was no ordinary exchange. It was the beginning of a journey toward possible redemption. The sun dipped low, casting a long shadow over the village as the air thickened with tension. Arya stood at the edge of the clearing, heart racing against the backdrop of flickering torches. Her eyes scanned the faces of her fellow villagers. Hollow cheeks and sunken eyes betrayed their desperation, yet they turned from her, unwilling or unable to meet her gaze. The weight of their sacrifice crushed her chest, each beat echoing the collective heartbeat of despair. Grook, towering and brutish, loomed in the distance, his hulking silhouette the embodiment of their primal fears. As he approached, a low growl rumbled in his throat, and Arya's hands trembled at her sides, clenched fists a futile attempt to steady the storm within her. A sense of betrayal hung heavy in the air, unspoken yet palpable. The villagers, once her friends, had made a choice steeped in survival, one that bound her fate to that of the savage. Arya remembered laughter shared over communal fires, the innocent games of childhood that now felt like a distant dream. Her heart twisted, a raw pulse of indignation and sorrow. Grook's eyes, dark and unreadable, studied her, the glint of something feral behind them. In that moment, she felt the weight of the world pressing down on her shoulders, no longer just a girl but a pawn in a brutal game of life and death. The flickering flames mirrored the chaos within her, a dance of light and shadow reflecting the battle of her spirit against the inevitable. A guttural roar erupted from Grook, a sound that shook the ground beneath her feet. The villagers flinched, instinctively shrinking back from his ferocity, their decision sealing Arya's fate. She could feel the collective breath of the village, a desperate inhalation as they awaited the unthinkable. Arya's heart thundered, each pulse a reminder of her humanity. She met Grook's gaze, a challenge simmering beneath her fear, igniting a flicker of resolve. The moment stretched, a fragile thread of connection forming, drowning out the cacophony of dread that surrounded her. In that gaze, she sensed an uncharted territory, the possibility of understanding in the midst of chaos, a chance to rise rather than merely survive. As night enveloped the village, the air grew dense with the scent of roasted meat, mingling with the acrid smell of fear. Arya felt the heat of the flames licking against her skin, a reminder of the primal instincts that thrummed in the atmosphere. The villagers huddled together, exchanging furtive glances as if bracing against a storm. Each crack of the fire mirrored her own internal struggle, the battle between fight and flight raging violently within. She caught a glimpse of a child peeking through the crowd, wide-eyed and trembling. In that innocent face, she saw not just herself, but the future of the village, a stark reminder that sacrifice can sometimes breed cycles of pain. A flicker of determination ignited in her heart. She would not be another lost soul. As Grook drew nearer, the world around Arya faded into a blur, leaving only the primal beats of life resonating in her ears. She stood tall, the weight of the villagers' expectations pressing against her back like an invisible hand. It was no longer just about survival. It was about something deeper, about reclaiming her narrative amidst the brutal reality that surrounded her. With every step Grook took, she felt a surge of defiance rising within. Though she was offered as a trade, she refused to be merely an object in their desperate calculus. Today, she would begin to etch her own story, one that would intertwine with her captor's fate in unexpected ways. And in that moment, the future shimmered like a distant star just within reach. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced across the pavement as Clara stepped onto the bustling street. Each footfall reverberated through her chest, mirroring the quickened beat of her heart. She clutched her worn leather bag tightly, its familiar weight grounding her amid the unfamiliar. A deep breath, laced with the scent of roasting chestnuts, filled her lungs, anchoring her thoughts. People swirled around her, their laughter and chatter blending into a cacophony that both thrilled and terrified her. In that moment, she felt like a ghost, a silent observer in a vibrant world, yearning to belong yet apprehensive of the unfamiliar faces that flitted past. Across the street stood Ethan, leaning casually against a lamppost, his gaze trained on a group of friends animatedly recounting a recent adventure. A fleeting smile tugged at his lips, a spark of warmth igniting in his chest. He brushed a hand through his tousled hair, the motion both nervous and hopeful. As Clara's eyes met his, time seemed to pause, and an electric current pulsed between them. His heart skipped, a profound sense of recognition blooming in the pit of his stomach. They hadn't spoken, yet in that instant, he felt as if he had known her a lifetime, an unspoken promise hanging in the air, thick with possibility. Clara's cheeks flushed with color as she caught his gaze, a rush of warmth flooding her. She quickly averted her eyes, focusing intently on her surroundings, pretending to examine a nearby storefront. Yet the moment lingered in her mind like a haunting melody, a spark igniting something deep within her. Her breath quickened as she stole another glance, curiosity battling the urge to retreat. The world blurred around her, and it was as if the universe had aligned in that fleeting moment, both exhilarating and terrifying, a silent acknowledgement that shifted the very fabric of her reality. She could feel the weight of uncharted paths stretching before her, the unspoken dare to step into the unknown. Ethan's heart raced as he watched Clara's fleeting reactions, an unhinged yearning pooling in his chest. She was striking, yet it was the vulnerability in her eyes that captivated him. He had seen countless faces, yet hers bore a rawness that soothed and troubled him all at once. In her hesitation, he discerned a reflection of his own struggles, those moments of doubt that gnawed at the edges of hope. Their lives intersected in that shared silence, both poised at the precipice of change, wondering if the other would dare to leap first. The world around him faded, the laughter and chatter dulling to a whisper, as he lost himself in the gravity of their moment. As Clara finally relinquished her grip on the bag, something within her shifted. She took a tentative step forward, a silent rebellion against the fear that had so tightly held her. The atmosphere around them crackled with tension, a promise unspoken, a chance to let vulnerability weave through their lives. Ethan noticed her movement, a flicker of hope igniting in him, urging him to take a chance as well. Time hung suspended, and in that brief span they were two souls intertwined by destiny, each brimming with unvoiced dreams and whispered fears. The air seemed to hum with possibilities, a burgeoning connection that promised to reshape their lives forever. The twilight air hung heavy with tension, as Arya pressed her back against the damp stone wall of the cave, her heartbeat matching the rhythm of distant water dripping. Shadows danced around her, twisting in the flickering light of a single flame. The sudden sound of rustling made her heart skip. She braced herself, every muscle tight and ready for a confrontation, every dark tale of wrathful beasts flashing through her mind. She imagined claws raking her skin, teeth sinking into flesh. Instead, Grook emerged from the darkness, uncertainty etched across his massive features. His golden eyes, wide and bewildered, seemed to search for understanding rather than hostility. In that moment, her instincts clashed with the reality before her, leaving her suspended between the urge to flee and the need to confront her fear. Grook stood there, massive and imposing, yet his posture betrayed a reluctance to engage. He shifted awkwardly on his feet, hands flexing as if unsure whether to reach out or retreat. His brow furrowed, revealing a vulnerability that contradicted Arya's expectations. As she scanned his features, the scaly ridges of his skin caught the flicker of light, each imperfection a reminder of the legends she'd been raised on. Yet instead of hatred or malice, she saw confusion mirrored in his gaze, a reflection of her own tumultuous emotions. It struck her that perhaps this creature, like her, was trapped by expectations, both societal and personal. The weight of the moment filled the air, heavy with the unsaid, and both of them hung in the balance, a curious standoff born of fear. For a heartbeat, time stood still as a battle raged within Arya. The stories of violence and cruelty rolled through her thoughts, a relentless tide that threatened to drown her in terror. Her breath quickened, yet her mind fought against the instinct to flee. Grook's confused expression deepened, and she caught a glimpse of something startling in his eyes, an aching loneliness that mirrored her own. Was he just a monster, or was there more to him than the tales told in hushed tones? The flickering flame illuminated the fragility of the moment, illuminating the cracks in her resolve. With each shared glance, barriers began to erode, revealing the raw edges of their fear and the hint of a fragile connection waiting to be forged. Yet the air remained thick with hostility, an invisible barrier between them that felt both suffocating and necessary. Arya clutched the dagger at her waist, the cold grip a reminder of her reality, the messages drilled into her since childhood. She felt the weight of generations on her shoulders, a relentless push to act, to defend, to survive. Grook's gaze, however, was not that of a predator. It was filled with questions, perhaps even a plea for understanding. A flicker of doubt wormed its way into her thoughts. Could she lower her weapon and step forward? Or was she risking everything by acknowledging the humanity that lay beneath the surface of his sharp exterior? As the minutes stretched on, silence enveloped them, a fragile cocoon of uncertainty. The cave echoed with their shared breaths, heavy and laden with possibility. Arya's gut twisted, torn between fear and intrigue as Grook took a tentative step closer, his eyes not leaving hers. The scent of damp earth and burnt wood enveloped them, mingling with the electric pulse of unspoken words. A shiver coursed through her, not of fear, but of an awakening, a realization that perhaps every creature carries within them a story worth hearing. Her grip on the dagger relaxed ever so slightly, and in that moment an unspoken vow emerged. She would unravel this unexpected enigma, even if it required a leap into the depths of her own fears. The sun dipped low on the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson. As Mara stood at the edge of the clearing, her heart thrummed in her chest, a primal rhythm that echoed the rustling leaves and whispered secrets of the wilderness. Every fiber of her being urged her to step forward, to surrender to the wild that beckoned like an old friend. The scent of damp earth mixed with the sweet musk of pine lingered in the air, igniting a fire in her spirit that had long been dimmed. With each breath, she felt the weight of expectations and regret slip through her fingers. dissolving into the warm evening breeze. It was in this moment that she realized the wild was not just a place, but a call to reclaim all that she had lost. A soft sound, like a sigh from the forest, drew her attention, and she turned to find a doe watching her from the shadows. Their eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passing between them, an invitation to trust, to embrace vulnerability. Mara's breath caught as she sensed the creature's heartbeat sync with her own, a reminder that life thrived in fragile moments of connection. Yet, the fear rooted deep within her, remnants of a past that had taught her to shield herself. The doe flicked its ears, and in its gaze, Mara saw reflected the courage she yearned for. Not the strength found in walls, but rather in the quiet acceptance of imperfection and the beauty of her scars. With a tentative step forward, she felt a surge of energy beneath her feet, the ground alive with stories waiting to be uncovered. The underbrush crackled gently, and each step she took was a promise to herself, to confront the shadows that lurked within. Memories cascaded through her mind like falling leaves, frayed edges of laughter, tears, and moments of bitter solitude. Yet here in the wild, she felt the stirrings of hope, igniting like embers in the remnants of a long-extinguished fire. Each inhale was a vow to rise, to sift through the wreckage of her past and confront the wildness that had always existed within her, trapped beneath layers of doubt and fear. The sun finally surrendered to the night, and with it, Mara felt a shift within. The cool air caressed her skin, wrapping around her tightly as if the wilderness were embracing her. Shadows danced around her, flickering like memories just out of reach. She could hear the songs of the night creatures, a symphony of life that thrummed in time with her awakening spirit. For the first time, she didn't want to hide from the darkness. She longed to explore it, to interweave her story with the wild's timeless narrative. Each note sung by the woods resonated with her unvoiced aspirations, nudging her to leap into the unknown, to trust that she would be caught, even if she stumbled. As the stars emerged, twinkling like distant possibilities, Mara felt a wildness igniting within her, a fierce, untamed desire to live authentically. The night was no longer a blanket of fear. It was an enticing dance of freedom. With her heart racing, she stepped deeper into the embrace of the trees, every branch a challenge, every rustle a reminder of her resilience. In that moment, the wild was not an enemy or an adversary. It became a sanctuary, a place where she could shed the skin of her past and emerge anew. With every courageous breath, Mara forged a path forward, weaving herself into the very fabric of the wilderness, transforming her longing into a celebration of the life that lay ahead. Arya stood at the mouth of the cave, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic. Shadows twisted like silent phantoms, their whispers faint yet unnerving. Her heart raced, each thump drumming an urgent beat against her ribs, a stark reminder of her isolation. The vibrant colors of her previous life seemed like distant memories, replaced by the monochrome of jagged stone walls. As she stepped inside, the chill seeped into her bones, igniting a war within her, hope flickering dimly like a candle at the mercy of the wind, battling against the encroaching darkness that threatened to swallow her whole. Days morphed into a gritty blur of stone and silence. Arya often traced her fingers over the rough surface of the walls, searching for familiarity in the coldness. Each scratch and shard mirrored the scars etched into her heart, remnants of memories she couldn't escape. As she settled into this subterranean existence, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. Moments of despair clawed at her spirit, yet with every breath she took, she clung to the remnants of resilience. The flickering light from her meager fire danced across her face, casting fleeting shadows that bore witness to her internal battle, a struggle between surrender and the fierce whisper of survival. In the stillness, her thoughts roamed free, transcending the confines of the cave. Reflections of her past life echoed in the silence, laughter of friends and the warmth of the sun clawing at the edges of her heart. Arya pressed her palms against her chest, feeling the steady rhythm of her pulse, a reminder that she was alive despite her surroundings. With a deep breath, she inhaled the damp, earthy scent of the cave, allowing it to ground her. Each exhale released fragments of her despair, transforming them into a quiet determination, a promise to herself that she would not let the darkness define her. As she wandered deeper into her thoughts, the cave began to transform. The shadows, once menacing, morphed into specters of possibility. Each drop of water echoing in the cavern became a raindrop in her mind, washing away remnants of hopelessness. With every passing hour, she crafted rituals of survival, collecting herbs that dared to grow in the cracks, creating a small sanctuary against the overwhelming bleakness. Her hands worked tirelessly, stitching together fragments of purpose. Arya could feel the flicker of life returning, igniting a slow-burning fire within her soul, a reminder that even in the darkest places, there exists the potential for light. In those quiet moments of self-discovery, she found strength in vulnerability. Every sob that escaped her lips echoed against the walls, merging with the sound of the dripping water, a symphony of sorrow and resolve. Arya embraced the wave of emotions crashing over her, allowing them to cleanse her spirit. With each tear shed, she released the weight of despair, carving out space for hope to take root. As the days blurred into nights, Arya stood taller, meeting the challenges of this stark new world with fierce resolve. Even as she struggled against the shadows, she emerged each day more radiant, a testament that within the cave's darkness, resilience thrives, and beauty can be found in the fight for survival. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden hue over the abandoned playground. Children's laughter echoed faintly in the distance, a haunting reminder of innocence lost. In the shadows, a figure lingered, heart pounding against the cage of ribs. Each thud mirrored the conflicting emotions swirling within: fear, regret, determination. A battered backpack hung from one shoulder, its contents barely visible, but the weight of its significance pressed heavily. As the breeze rustled the leaves, the figure took a deep breath, exhaling the remnants of a darker past, envisioning a chance for something better. With every inch closer to the dilapidated swing set, memories of hostility danced unbidden in the mind. A fist raised, a voice raised, each echo a fragment of a previous life marred by choices that now felt like chains. The scent of rust and decay mingled with the bittersweet air, and the figure paused. There was a choice to be made, one that could alter the course of existence. In that brief stillness, it became apparent that the only way to sever those chains was to embrace vulnerability, to step forward and confront the ghosts that lingered in the periphery. A figure appeared, small and trembling, eyes darting with a fear that transcended age. The innocence in those wide, dark orbs mirrored the bruised remnants of a soul that had endured too much. The protector's heart clenched, a surge of fierce protectiveness igniting within. A silent vow formed, not spoken but etched in every fiber of being. Actions would speak louder than any words. A gentle smile broke the tension, an unspoken promise to shield, to nurture, and to guide. The bond formed in that fleeting moment was palpable, a delicate thread weaving together disparate lives marked by hardship. The shadows deepened as the evening crept in, enveloping them in an embrace both tender and threatening. Every creak of the rusted playground felt like an echo of the past, yet now there was a flicker of hope. The protector knelt, letting the weight of the world rest upon the knees, offering a hand, a bridge across the chasm of fear. It wasn't just an act of kindness, it was an invitation to trust. The small hand hesitated, trembling with uncertainty before slowly reaching out, fingertips brushing against calloused skin. In that exchange, a fragile connection formed, one that whispered of a refuge amid chaos. As darkness settled, the playground transformed into a realm where secrets could be shared without fear of judgment. The protector settled in beside the child, their breaths synchronized, a rhythm of solidarity against the enveloping gloom. Stories began to spill forth like fragile blossoms, each word a testament to suffering and survival. The protector listened intently, eyes reflecting the flickering light of the street lamp, a steadfast anchor in the turbulent sea of emotions. There was a warmth blooming within, a realization that redemption was not a solitary journey. It thrived in the unlikeliest of protectors and the fragile yet resilient spirit of a child, desperately seeking safety. Arya crouched behind a thick bush, her breath coming in shallow gasps as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the clearing. The rustle of leaves sent shivers down her spine, each snap and crack echoing her fears. Grook, with his hulking frame and fierce demeanor, stood at a distance, his eyes scanning the perimeter. She had expected indifference, perhaps a smirk at her cowardice. Instead, his tense posture spoke volumes. The way he clenched his fists and narrowed his gaze hinted at something deeper than mere annoyance. In that moment, uncertainty crept into her heart, tugging at the threads of her prejudice. She watched as he remained vigilant, a silent guardian against the encroaching darkness. A low growl pierced the air, and Arya's instinct was to shrink back further into her hiding place. But Grook's reaction was swift and fierce. He stepped forward, muscles coiling like a spring, illuminating the protective instinct she had never thought to associate with him. She caught a glimpse of his determination, the way his jaw tightened and his body tensed, a barrier between her and the unknown peril. As a wild wolf broke through the underbrush, Grook lunged forward with a ferocity that sent the creature scurrying back into the shadows. Arya's heart raced not only from fear but from an unexpected swell of admiration. In that split second, her view of him began to shift, the line between monster and savior blurring. Days passed, and each dawn brought with it a new instance of Grook's inexplicable kindness. On one morning she awoke to the scent of smoke and wild herbs wafting through the air. Curiosity piqued, she ventured from her makeshift shelter, only to find him crouched over a small fire, stirring a pot filled with foraged roots and herbs. He glanced up, his eyes meeting hers for just a moment, an uncharacteristic softness reflected in their depths. Arya felt the weight of his gaze, a silent invitation to partake in this moment of warmth. As she approached cautiously, the aroma enveloped her, and she realized he had prepared this meal not for himself, but for her. It was a gesture laden with an unfamiliar tenderness, a chink in the armor of his intimidating facade. Each act of kindness was a seed planted in the garden of her doubts. There were moments when he would catch her staring, a flicker of vulnerability surfacing in his usually guarded demeanor. One afternoon, while gathering berries, he reached out to pluck a thorny branch that threatened her skin. His fingers brushed against hers, and a jolt of electricity surged between them. Grook's expression shifted, a fleeting shadow of embarrassment washing over his face, as if he too were aware of the fragility of this newfound connection. Arya's heartbeat quickened, caught in the cyclone of confusion. How could the brood of her nightmares extend such thoughtful gestures? Each brush of their hands became a silent conversation, dissolving her preconceived notions with every accidental touch. In the twilight of that transformative week, Arya found herself watching him more intently, searching for evidence that the kindness was indeed real. One night, while the stars twinkled like distant beacons, she overheard him talking softly to himself, his voice low and rough, almost pleading. Curiosity propelled her closer, and she caught fragments of his words, a mix of regrets and hopes. For the first time, she recognized the layers of complexity beneath his exterior. That night, as she lay in her makeshift bed, she wrestled with her emotions. The fear that had once ruled her mind was now intertwined with a peculiar sense of gratitude. Grook was no longer just a figure of fright. He was a man, one who wore his own scars, and for the first time, Arya dared to wonder if perhaps there was more to him than met the eye. In a crowded cafe, the clinking of cups and hushed murmurs filled the air, but there was a palpable silence between Clara and Mark. Her fingers trembled lightly around the porcelain mug, warmth seeping through the ceramic. Mark's gaze lingered on the window, the world outside bustling with life, while the distance between them felt like an ocean. Each unspoken word hung heavily in the air, a reminder of the rift that had grown since that fateful night. Clara's heart raced, a frantic drum echoing in her chest as she yearned for connection, yet felt paralyzed by the weight of their shared history, a history both beautiful and marred by regrets. Mark glanced at Clara, her eyes downcast, shimmering with unspoken emotions. He longed to reach out, to bridge the invisible chasm that kept them apart, yet every time he opened his mouth, fear strangled his words before they could escape. The silence morphed into a living entity, curling around them, wrapping them in its suffocating embrace. He could sense her unease, the way her shoulders tightened and her breath hitched, yet the thought of addressing the wounds left them both trembling. With each passing moment, the gulf widened, and he wrestled with doubts, the suffocating burden of guilt anchoring him to the seat, paralyzing any desperate attempt to connect. Outside, children laughed, and couples shared stolen glances, but inside, time felt irrelevant, stretching out like an endless horizon. Clara's heart thudded with memories of laughter and love, now eclipsed by shadows of hurt. She caught Mark's eyes for a fleeting moment, and an electric current surged between them, a flicker of all that once was. Yet the acknowledgement was brief, an ember extinguished by the weight of what lay buried. Her pulse quickened at the thought of voicing the pain, the misunderstandings that festered like wounds beneath their skin. Fear twisted in her stomach, a ghost haunting her thoughts, urging her to flee rather than confront the raw truth of their fractured bond. Mark shifted in his seat, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. The warmth of the cafe contrasted sharply with the chill in the air between them. Each breath felt like a struggle, heavy with the need to voice his regrets. He craved the release that confessions could offer, yet shame wrapped around him like a cloak, stifling clarity. He observed Clara's furrowed brow and the way her lips pressed tightly together, as if she were assembling the fragments of her own shattered hopes. In that moment, he realized they were both trapped in a cycle of silence, each waiting for the other to take the first step towards reconciliation, but neither daring enough to break the unyielding barrier. As the sun began its slow descent, casting golden hues across the cafe, the unyielding silence weighed heavily upon them. Clara felt time slipping away, a precious gift wasted in the ebbing light. She grasped the edge of the table, grounding herself against a swell of emotions that threatened to drown her. With a deep breath, she sensed the possibility of vulnerability, the faint glimmer of hope amidst the chaos. Perhaps it was time to unravel the threads of misunderstanding and weave them anew. A flicker of resolve ignited within her, urging her to let go of the fear that had held her captive. As she opened her mouth to speak, the world around them faded, and in that breath, the potential for redemption shimmered like the last rays of sunshine before nightfall. Arya leaned over the rickety dining table, furrowing her brow as she attempted to decipher Grook's jumbled words. His guttural sounds echoed like distant thunder, each syllable a riddle that teased her understanding. She nodded, forcing a smile, even as confusion clouded her eyes. Grook's expressive face morphed from joy to vulnerability, the shadow of frustration crossing his brow. The way his large hands gestured wildly, tracing invisible patterns in the air, was both perplexing and endearing. Each attempt they made at conversation felt like trying to catch butterflies in a storm. Beautiful, yet fleeting. Arya's heart raced, torn between the thrill of connection and the sting of helplessness. Every misunderstanding pushed them both further into a peculiar intimacy. The moment Grook tried to explain his favorite food, she couldn't hold back a laugh as he mimicked the act of hunting, pretending to stalk an invisible creature. His eyes sparkled with delight, but Arya's amusement quickly shifted to empathy when she noticed the flicker of insecurity beneath his exuberance. She leaned in closer, mirroring his motions, and suddenly their laughter intertwined in the air like a melody. It was a bittersweet symphony of connection and chaos, where the simplicity of shared joy overshadowed their inability to communicate clearly. She felt a bond begin to form, a fragile bridge linking their worlds. In that moment, their differences didn't matter. The laughter was the language they both understood. As days turned into weeks, the gaps in their communication began to feel more like a dance than a struggle. One evening, Grook picked up a shell from the shoreline and presented it to her, his expression filled with earnest hope. Arya took it, turning it over in her palm, feeling the cool texture against her skin. She knew he was offering a piece of his world, a gesture meant to convey something beautiful, something she couldn't quite grasp. Nevertheless, the warmth blooming within her chest as she met his gaze filled the silence with an understanding deeper than words. With a careful smile, she placed the shell against her heart, and Grook's face lit up with profound relief. In that shared moment, they transcended language, hearing the melody of feelings rather than words. Their interactions grew richer in nuance, the misunderstandings paving the way for deeper revelations. One afternoon, as they attempted to cook together, flour exploded into the air like a burst of confetti, enveloping them in white clouds. Grook's wide-eyed surprise met Arya's muffled laughter, and suddenly the kitchen was filled with joyous chaos. She pointed at him playfully, making a show of dusting him off, while he retaliated with a playful swipe of flour across her cheek. It was this delightful absurdity that shattered the lingering barriers of language, carving out a space where they could simply be. Each playful moment added layers to their bond, as the laughter intertwined with the dust of misunderstanding, creating a beautiful tapestry of connection. In the quiet hours that followed, they often found themselves sitting beneath the starlit sky, the weight of words no longer pressing upon them. A shared glance was enough to convey a myriad of emotions. A complex dialogue formed through the language of the heart. Arya would sketch intricate patterns in the dirt, while Grook drew closer, studying each line as if it held the secrets of their souls. Those silent exchanges, rich with unspoken understanding, became their sanctuary. As they grew closer, the initial barriers of language transformed from walls into doorways, inviting exploration rather than isolation. Each moment of laughter, confusion, and connection twined them together, revealing the profound depth of their unlikely bond and the beauty in their shared journey of understanding. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth as Rachel knelt in the garden, hands buried in the soil, each clump turned over revealing the promise of life hidden beneath. She had always found solace in the rhythm of planting, the gentle tug of roots yielding to her touch. But today, the act felt different. It was more than a ritual. With each seed she nestled into the ground, a flickering hope ignited within her, an echo of trust she had abandoned long ago. The sunlight filtered through the leaves overhead, casting a tapestry of shadows that danced around her, almost whispering reassurance. Rachel's heart raced, each heartbeat a mantra reminding her that sometimes to grow, one must first relinquish the fear of what might come. As she pressed her palms against the cool earth, memories flooded her mind, moments of betrayal that had left her heart bruised and distrustful. She thought of John's words, spoken in haste, cutting deeper than any knife, promises that crumbled like dry leaves underfoot. Yet here, with the seeds nestled in their dark sanctuary, Rachel confronted a truth that surged within her. The fragility of trust could sprout anew, just like these seeds yearning for light. With every gentle pat of the soil, she felt the weight of despair lifting, replaced by a faint pulse of possibility. She closed her eyes, inhaling the rich aroma, envisioning a future where vulnerability could once again be an act of courage. Nearby, the sound of laughter broke through her reverie, a chorus of children playing, their joy a stark contrast to her internal battle. Rachel opened her eyes and watched them, the innocence reflected in their carefree abandon. They tumbled over one another, unbothered by the world's complexities, trusting implicitly that they could fall and rise again without consequence. For a moment, she was transported back to her own childhood, memories of swinging high into the sky, where the ground felt far away and trust was a natural state. Could she reclaim that innocence? A small smile tugged at her lips, a silent acknowledgement that trust wasn't merely a commodity to hoard, but a relationship to cultivate, much like her small garden. Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Rachel stood back to admire her work, a patch of earth rich with promise. Each seed represented a chance, a small act of faith that could flourish into something beautiful. The shadows lengthened, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. She felt a warmth in her chest, a blossoming resolve that whispered she could offer herself the same grace she had extended to the seeds. Trusting herself was the first step, a daring leap into vulnerability. With a deep breath, she absorbed the growing night, as if gathering the stars to weave into her dreams. The road ahead was uncertain, yet for the first time in years, she was willing to take those steps forward. Finally, as darkness settled around her, Rachel began to understand the nuances of trust. It was not merely about relying on others, but also about opening her heart to the potential of love and connection. She felt the gentle pulse of her garden and knew it mirrored the rhythms of human relationships, nurtured with patience and care. Each day would require her to confront her fears and insecurities, but each sunrise would also present a new opportunity to grow. With every seed that broke the earth's surface in the coming weeks, she would remember this moment, where a hesitant heart began to unfurl, learning that trust was an ever-evolving journey. one she was ready to embrace. The sunlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting playful shadows across the forest floor as Arya and Gruk navigated the twisting paths. Each step echoed with the weight of unspoken words, enveloping them in a fragile silence. As they gathered wild herbs, Arya caught glimpses of Gruk's furrowed brow, the tension in his shoulders hinting at burdens far beyond the hunt for food. His hands, calloused and scarred, trembled slightly as he clasped a sprig of thyme, revealing the vulnerability beneath his stoic exterior. In those quiet moments, she began to sense the depth of his responsibilities: a leader, protector, and the last line of defense for his tribe. The flicker of uncertainty in his eyes when he thought no one was watching stirred a protective instinct within her, igniting a bond built on mutual understanding. As dusk settled, they shared a meal, the flickering fire casting warm hues on their faces. Arya served the stew, trying to gauge his reaction as he tasted the earthy blend of flavors. Gruk's eyes softened momentarily, the tension in his jaw easing as he allowed himself to savor the moment. In his gaze, she saw a glimpse of the boy he once was, unburdened by the weight of leadership. The corners of his mouth twitched, almost forming a smile, yet the shadows of doubt lingered just beneath the surface. That fleeting connection ignited something within her, a gentle urge to reach out and cradle his pain, to offer solace without words. She realized that the man sitting across the fire was not merely a warrior. He was a soul grappling with the heavy chains of expectation and duty. The following days melted into an intoxicating rhythm, filled with laughter and shared stories as they ventured deeper into the wilderness. With every passing moment, Arya sensed the cracks in Gruk's armor widening. One afternoon, while they rested on a sun-drenched rock, he opened up about his past, a tale of loss and fierce loyalty that tethered him to his tribe. His voice trembled as he recounted the sacrifices he made, revealing the myriad choices that shaped his journey. Arya leaned forward, hanging on to every word, her heart clenching with empathy. In that moment, the world around them faded, and a profound understanding blossomed between them, a silent acknowledgement that they were both healing from their own scars, bridging their disparate realities with whispered truths. Every night, Gruk's dreams revealed more of his struggle. Arya would often watch as his brow knitted in distress while he slept, and a wave of compassion would wash over her. The way he murmured the names of fallen comrades filled the air with palpable sorrow, resonating within her own longing for connection. Determined to ease his torment, she began to leave small tokens by the fire, petals from flowers he had admired, or a carved wooden charm she had crafted. Each morning, Gruk would find them, his eyes lighting up with a mixture of gratitude and surprise. In those moments, the fragile trust between them began to solidify, unspoken promises forged in shared vulnerability, a dance of healing that neither had anticipated. As their bond deepened, Arya often found herself captivated by the glimmers of hope that surfaced in Gruk's laughter. It was a sound that, once foreign, became a melody etched in her thoughts. They began to challenge one another, sharing dreams and instincts, exploring the possibility of a shared future that transcended their differences. In the quiet, stolen moments between duties and expectations, she saw the flickers of a man willing to embrace change. Gruk's vulnerability, laid bare against the backdrop of his fierce exterior, made her heart swell with an unrelenting belief in redemption. Each shared breath, every secret uttered beneath the stars, cemented a fragile yet profound trust, an unbreakable tether that wove their stories together, sealing their fates in a tapestry of resilience and hope. The winds howled outside, rattling the window panes like a restless spirit. Inside, Sarah sat curled on the couch, the flickering candlelight casting trembling shadows that danced across her face. Each gust seemed to carry whispers of her past, echoing the mistakes she thought she had buried. Her heart raced, a visceral reminder of the chaos she had fled. The memories surged, her mother's disapproving gaze, the sound of shattering glass, and the final desperate cry for help. It was as if the storm outside mirrored the tempest within her, an uninvited guest stirring up long-forgotten fears. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, grounding herself amidst the onslaught of memories that threatened to consume her. The night turned darker, the shadows deepening, and with them came the sense of impending doom. A distant siren wailed, slicing through the silence like a knife, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Outside, the trees swayed violently, their branches clawing at the sky, as if trying to escape the chaos below. With each crack of thunder, her heart echoed a primal rhythm of survival. Each flash of lightning illuminated fragments of her life, moments of laughter, betrayal, and sorrow. They flickered in her mind like a fragmented film reel, relentless in their pursuit. She could feel the weight of the world pressing down, a reminder that the storm was not just external, but reflected a deeper struggle within, fighting to rise above shadows that threatened to drown her spirit. A loud banging jolted her from her reverie, reverberating through the stillness like a gunshot. Panic surged, her breath quickening. She knew she couldn't hide. The external and internal threats were one and the same now. Every deep breath she took was tinged with a mix of dread and determination. She rose slowly, feeling the weight of each step as she approached the door. With trembling hands, she reached for the doorknob, considering the consequences of her actions. This was a moment of reckoning, a choice that demanded courage. The darkness outside seemed to beckon her, urging her to confront whatever lay beyond. With a final steadying breath, she opened the door, bracing herself for the chaos that awaited. The wind rushed in, cold and biting, wrapping around her like an icy shroud. Outside, shadows moved, shifting in the relentless storm, and she felt exposed, stripped of her defenses. Yet within that vulnerability, a flicker of courage ignited. Each raindrop that hit her skin felt like a cleansing balm, washing away remnants of fear that clung to her. She stared into the night, her pulse synchronizing with the rhythm of the storm. It was a strange dance, one between surrender and defiance. In that moment, she understood that external threats could only hold power if she allowed them. The tempest raged, but she was no longer merely a bystander. She was a participant, ready to reclaim her narrative amidst the chaos. As she stood there, a figure emerged from the shadows, silhouetted against the stormy backdrop. Her heart pounded, uncertainty gripping her, but there was no turning back. The figure drew closer, revealing a familiar face with haunted eyes reflecting their shared history. It was a reflection of every choice she had made, every risk she had shunned. Their gazes locked, communicating a wild mix of hope and fear, a silent truce forged in the crucible of their past traumas. They stood on the precipice of something transformative, where the external threats no longer defined them, but illuminated their paths toward redemption. The storm swirled around them, but here, within the eye of the chaos, was the promise of a new beginning. The dawn light sifted through the treetops, casting fragmented shadows across the forest floor, where Grook stood, his broad shoulders tense as he surveyed the horizon. The soft whisper of the wind seemed to carry ominous warnings, rustling the leaves with a disquieting urgency. He felt the weight of the tribe's history on his chest, an ancestral echo of conflicts past. Each breath he drew tasted of anxiety, his heart thundering like the drums of war in the distance. As he clenched his fists, raw and calloused, he felt the pulse of the land beneath his feet, a reminder that the harmony they had curated was fragile, teetering on the brink of chaos. Arya brushed past him, her presence a hushed balm against the tempest swirling in Grook's mind. He caught the scent of her wildflowers, a stark contrast to the metallic tang of anxiety in the air. As she turned to him, her eyes sparkled with a mingling of hope and fear, challenging Grook's fortress of resolve. She was a reminder of all that was beautiful and unbroken. Yet the sight of her brought a rush of turmoil. Her safety hung dangerously in the balance, an uninvited weight settling on his heart. The tension coiled tighter as he realized that Arya was not merely an ally in their fragile peace, but a beacon that amplified the stakes of every decision he had to make. With each passing hour, the distant drums grew louder, an insistent reminder of encroaching danger. Grook could feel the first pangs of possessiveness surfacing, an instinct that resided deep within his marrow. He instinctively took a step closer to Arya, as if his proximity could shield her from the storm brewing beyond their borders. He stole glances at her laughter, at the way it danced over the tensions between them, the hesitation that now lingered like smoke in the air. It was a bittersweet melody that echoed in his mind, pulling him between devotion and the primal urge to protect what was his. The easy camaraderie of their companionship felt like a delicate glass ornament, ready to shatter at the first hint of threat. As twilight cloaked the forest in shadows, Grook's muscles tightened in preparation for the confrontation to come. The fire crackled, but its warmth could not chase away the icy tendrils of doubt that slithered through his mind. He caught Arya's gaze across the flickering flames, a silent inquiry filled with unspoken words. He wanted to reassure her, to share the weight of his resolve. Instead, he felt his heart tangle with the complexities of his fear. The thought of losing her ignited a rage deep within him, an unyielding force surging to the surface. With a resolute breath, Grook reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers in a move that spoke volumes, grounding them both in the face of the uncertainty that loomed. The night deepened, and the rumble of distant conflict echoed like a dark omen, stirring Grook's protective instincts to life. As the shadows lengthened, he found himself shielding Arya more instinctively, a silent guardian against the chaos threatening to breach their sanctuary. Her presence, once the source of joy, now ignited a desperate need within him to confront the rival tribes. His heart, a battlefield of emotion, loyalty, and fear. Grook's thoughts raced with strategies, yet within the tumult, he recognized an undeniable truth. She was worth every risk, every sacrifice. The firelight flickered, illuminating the determination in his eyes as he swore silently to uphold this fragile peace, even if it meant bracing against a storm that could tear them apart. As the sun dipped below the jagged horizon, casting a warm golden hue over the rugged landscape, Ilara stood by the fire, her heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and newfound strength. What had begun as a desperate bargain for survival had blossomed into a bond that transcended the harshness of their circumstances. The caveman, once a figure of fear, now revealed a spirit tempered by kindness and vulnerability, teaching her that redemption often lies in the unlikeliest of places. Ilara glanced around at the makeshift family they had formed, a motley crew stitched together by shared scars and laughter. Each face reflected resilience. Each soul had found a home in the warmth of trust and understanding. They had all come seeking something, whether it was safety, love, or simply a sense of belonging, and in their shared journey, they had discovered the power of acceptance. With the stars twinkling above like scattered hopes, Ilara whispered a silent vow to cherish this unbreakable bond. In the heart of the wild, she learned that family is not defined by blood, but by the love we forge through shared struggles. Redemption, she realized, is found not in solitude, but in the embrace of those who see us for who we can become. As you've witnessed Mara's journey from captive to companion and seen how compassion can bloom in the most unlikely places, take a moment to reflect. What act of kindness has changed your life when you least expected it? Share your story in the comments below, and if you believe in the power of unexpected bonds and the beauty of redemption, hit subscribe and join us for more tales that remind us all that hope can be found even in the darkest caves.